listening to Radicast 1980X. I'm Adam Dravian, and with me is...
Jessica Safron.
We're the creators of a webcomic called Satan Ninja 1980X. I write the comic.
And I co-wrote it and do all the art.
Our comic is heavily influenced by our favorite 80s media, especially movies. So when we're not working on Satan Ninja, we watch a shitload of stuff from the 80s, and that's what we'll be discussing and reviewing for this podcast. So this is a special episode because it's our first episode with a guest.
Hail Satan.
Yes, our guest is Gregg Samsa, good friend of ours, super good friend of ours.
Great friend. Longtime friend.
Amazing friend. Actually, Gregg is the reason Jessica and I are together.
It's
partially.
True. It's true.
That and a French serial killer.
Yep. Should we tell that story?
Yeah, I think that's relevant. What? You don't think that's relevant?
To the Evil Dead?
It's relevant to this podcast.
Okay, sure.
But we'll save that story until after we talk about the movie. So I was re-listening to a couple of our previous episodes, Black Cauldron and Extra, and in both of those episodes I make the same fuck-up where I say that something came to life instead of it came alive.
Oh, no.
Like, came to life.
Wow,
And
what an asshole.
Yeah. I just want to say that I know that that's not the correct way to say it. For anybody who caught that, I know
I'm
it's
sure that they
it's
thought.
come alive, not came to live.
Yeah.
And I think I also said I went to library instead of saying I went to the library. So just want to throw that out there.
I'm sure people probably thought you were a great big idiot.
I know.
Saying...
Yep. They probably shut the
Anyway.
podcast off right then and there. Bam.
Probably. Anyway.
We have our first guest, Gregg, great friend of ours. He was also in the promo videos that we shot, playing the punk rock dude with the glasses. Mm-hmm. And he did some music during the sequence where Jessica, as Jesse the boy, is playing video games. You did the NES sounding chiptunes.
Yeah, I make video game music, too, on the side.
Yeah. Gregg Samsa, he does a lot of, like, kind of chiptune sounding or, like, kind of retro synthwave type music that you could check out on...
SoundCloud.com/Gregory Samsa with 2 G's.
There you go.
3 G's.
3 G's.
Oh, yeah, 2 G's at the end, 1 at the start.
Thanks, Mom.
So, it's been a while since we've recorded any episodes. We kind of were on a hiatus for a bit, but now we are back big time because we have switched to Podbean, so we have a dedicated... We're paying for this shit now, so now we have to do a weekly episode.
Oh, man. Yeah.
We have unlimited audio on Podbean, because before we were on SoundCloud, and after just... They only give you so many minutes a month. If you're doing, like, music... It's hard to hit that limit right away. But when you're doing a fucking podcast that's like an hour to half an hour long, it's super quick. I didn't think we'd hit the limit as soon as we did. But we had 5 episodes on there and we were already hitting the limit. So we're not going to be putting them on SoundCloud anymore. I think we'll keep that for music. Like when we do Satan Ninja related soundtracks or whatever, like Jessica wants to do an album eventually of Satan Ninja themed songs.
Well, yeah.
We'll throw those on SoundCloud. But the podcast
not full album, but
is now on Podbean and... It's been put on iTunes and Google Play, so
yeah,
you can check it out there. It's easier to listen to than ever.
Yeah.
So
do it.
Listen to it however you want. You can go to our website, you can go to Google Play, but you can't really go to SoundCloud anymore. So, so our topic this week, what is it, Jessica?
Evil Dead 2.
Evil Dead 2.
Dead by Dawn.
What did you see first in the Evil Dead trilogy? I'm gonna guess Army of Darkness.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so you watched that knowing that it was part of a franchise
Hell
or not
no.
at all?
Of course not. Nobody did. Unless they, knew of the franchise. Anyway, no, I was 12 and in 7th grade. And I was at school one day and my friend Derek was like, "Hey, have you ever heard of Army of Darkness?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "I'm gonna lend it to you." And he brought the VHS to school and just gave it to me. So you need to watch this. And I was like, okay. And I brought it home and I watched it with my dad and we had a grand old time watching Army of Darkness. And I was like, holy shit, this is great. This is different from anything I've ever seen.
What about you, Gregg? What'd you see first?
Army of Darkness. I remember when I was like 9 or 10, my sister had brought back the tape from Videomaster. And
Just a random rental.
random rental, Army of Darkness. I remember being... I mean, I know it's funny now, but God, it scared the shit out of me when I was a kid.
It does have, it's like considered like, oh, they went straight humor with Army of Darkness,
Yeah.
but it has horror elements, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, like,
to a
I
kid.
like hid from it and stuff like that. So it's like...
Well, it was scary.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Man, yeah, I
But-
didn't even see it
Yeah.
until I was.
You had
an
to see it
adult.
when
wait,
kid.
all right,
Yeah.
better example. I was afraid of the Dilophosaurus in Jurassic Park. So I
Was that the spitting one?
Yeah,
that
pretty
was
scary.
scary.
when he's in the car with
Holy
Newman?
cow,
Yes,
yeah.
that was terrifying.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I literally got up and went around and hid behind the seat in the theater.
Oh man, what?
Yeah.
I was 2 years younger than you when that came out, and I was enjoying every moment.
Now I did the when I saw Masters of the Universe, you know, the He-Man movie with Dolph Lundgren. When Beastman came on, he was so scary to me that I actually I crawled like down below your seat, and I just was crying, and yeah, it must have been really embarrassing to. I think my aunt brought me to the theater, and
Oh my gosh.
same for Harry and the Hendersons. I cried like since they showed Bigfoot. I was just like I just cried for like half the movie until I realized like, oh, he's just a silly Bigfoot.
Well, my movie for that was Nightmare Before Christmas. I don't know. I was born in '88. Do the math. I don't remember how old I was.
Sure.
Yeah.
You cried and
I cried during the first song. It was super scary, and then I was covering my eyes too, and then I opened my eyes, and then after the first song, I thought, this is the best movie I've ever seen. And then the movie came out on VHS like a year later, or whatever, however long it took. And my brother got it for his birthday. And he threw it on the floor when he opened his birthday present. and then I went and retrieved it from the floor and said, can I have it? and then it became my favorite movie of all time.
But yeah, Army of Darkness was the first that I saw of it, and yeah, I had no idea that there was this entire series of movies that were connected to this at all. I think I even watched...
You liked it a lot, though. You were scared of it, but
I mean, like, I watched a lot of movies like that scared the hell out of me, but I loved them. And then I don't even think I knew about Evil Dead even until after, like, I saw Bruce Campbell and, like, Briscoe County Jr. And even Xena and stuff.
Yeah, so I basically had the same situation. Like you guys, I saw Army of Darkness first. It was like a random rental, and I watched the movie, and it was the catalyst for making me into who I am. Because it's just like, it resonated so strongly with me. Like, you know, you got fucking shotguns and demons and chainsaws, and oh my god, this guy jumps in the air and his stub fist just goes zoop and fits into his chainsaw for no reason. Why is that happening? Because, you know, I didn't see the earlier movies, so it didn't make any sense, but I loved it. And it was just like the perfect movie for me, and I loved it so much. And around the same time, I got really into the game Doom. So it was just like chainsaws and shotguns and demons. That's me. It's like I discovered who I am. And that really kind of just like, it created Adam Dravian.
Why didn't you get a job chopping trees or something? You know, like doing
That
something
is
with
work.
chainsaws.
I don't work. Feel my hands. I've never worked in my life. Actually, I was a cable man, and I had to do some manual labor.
You don't
but
need to use a chainsaw to be a cable man. Or do you?
Maybe a shotgun.
I'm not a manly man who can do manly chainsawing tree stuff.
But
I just
damn it,
want to
you
see
look-
other people chainsaw things.
Damn it, you look like a manly man, though. You have me fooled.
Look like you'd be such a bruiser.
Yeah.
Tough guy.
Yeah.
I got to go to LA and just start auditioning for all like the. If only it was the '80s again, and there could be like every movie has punk thugs and like subways and stuff. I could just audition for that. Like maybe Trump being president will kind of return us to like a Reagan era,
God.
where like action movies like that are gonna be all big, and there's just gonna be like punks are the villains in every film, and then I could have a future just being typecast as a punk guy.
Yeah.
Anyway. So Evil Dead, or not Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, had no idea it was part of a franchise at all. And in my teen years, I was at a video store with my friend Bob, and I was just looking at the horror section, reading the backs of the boxes, and I picked up like Evil Dead and I was reading it, and I was like, wait a second, Ash? Demons? Like, what? This is connected to Army of Darkness? And I like saw Evil Dead 2, and it's like, there are movies before Army of Darkness, and it blew my fucking mind. It was like one of the greatest revelations of my life, the moment that I realized that there was more Army of Darkness movies. So we rented them, of course. Super excited. We get home, back to his place, we pop in the Evil Dead. And we're sitting there, we're ready, you know? We're pumped up for some more, like, chainsawing, deadite shenanigans. And instead, we see terror. We saw a gritty, early 80s, I think it was mostly filmed in 79, horror film that was just, like, brutal horror. And that was, we just, like, watched it just, like, in silence. Just, like, and plus it was, like, it was made even seedier by the fact it was like on a shitty VHS tape with all the tracking. It was all dark and hard to see, but it was just like,
this isn't funny.
Yeah, this isn't funny. This is fucked up.
Oh, come on. It was a little funny, right?
Not really.
No.
No.
Evil Dead?
The first Evil Dead,
I've
it's
seen
not
it
a comedy. Some people, they try to, push comedy into it because it's just what they think of when they think of the Evil Dead franchise. But no, the first one is...
Oh, come on. That tree and that woman... Pretty funny.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be disturbing, and maybe there's some humor. There's an undercurrent of humor. There's a bit of camp,
camp.
But it's mostly as far as movies of that time, it is a much more like effective and truly scary movie than most horror films of the time. Like all the cheesy slashers that were being made. Mm-hmm. Like compare that to Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th has nothing on the Evil Dead, and you know I appreciate the artistry that went into making it and everything they did in such a low budget. It just wasn't what I was expecting. And so we were just like, huh. And then we pop in Evil Dead 2, and we're like, oh, here we go. This is what we were expecting. And you know, of course, Evil Dead 2 is fucking amazing. And that's my Evil Dead story.
Yeah. I watched them in reverse.
Really?
I saw Evil Dead 2 after Army of Darkness, maybe 2 years later. Yeah, I was 14. So I was actually kind of happy that I couldn't remember Evil Dead 2 very well, because I feel like I discovered an amazing film.
So you didn't rewatch it until we just saw it recently on Halloween?
That's right. Yeah.
Wow, okay, that's great.
I was 14 when I had seen it last. That was the first time I'd ever seen it and the last. So, oh man, I was so happy.
I think I discovered Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 in a pretty similar way to you, Adam. Seen Army of Darkness, years and years earlier, and then me and my best friend at the time would always go and look at the horror movie tapes, and then we discovered Evil Dead 1 and 2. We watched them back to back, and then probably even Army of Darkness.
Did you have a similar reaction to Evil Dead 1?
Yeah, holy shit, man.
Okay, so for people who... The one listener out there who's not familiar with the Evil Dead movies, I'll sum up the first movie really succinctly by just saying that a group of college-age students go to a cabin in the middle of the woods. They accidentally play a tape that has translations from an evil Book of the Dead, and it brings about demons and evilness, and they all get turned into or most of them get turned into evil zombies, and there's a lot of brutality and stuff. So it's like the quintessential in the middle of the woods horror film, right? Yeah.
And then there's one college student,
Ashley in the first movie.
Ashley.
Good call for the sequels to just call him Ash.
Yeah. But him having to survive this ordeal.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
He has to survive this terrible ordeal surrounded by demons.
And it very much feels like a precursor to survival horror video games. I could see a lot of Evil Dead in Resident Evil or Silent Hill and stuff like that.
Or
just
even
the whole
Sweet Home, I think it's called, for the NES. Yeah,
was that by Capcom?
I think so. It was a precursor to Resident Evil.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people say that the what's that one game, Alone in the Dark, was the true precursor. And obviously they took a lot of gameplay elements from Alone in the Dark, but they did make that game Sweet Home, which I've never played that.
I've never heard of it.
I die very quick every time I try and play it, much like most NES games.
Yeah. Well, gotta inflate the length of the game somehow. So the sequel of Evil Dead is there's this dumbass debate in the fan community as to whether or not it is a remake of the first movie or a sequel to the first movie.
What a bunch of dumbasses.
They are, because here's the deal.
All right.
They didn't have the rights to the footage of the first movie, I believe. I think that's what the situation was. So in order to catch people up, because it was a much bigger movie that they hoped to have a much wider audience for, they wanted to get people caught up from the events of the first movie, they decided to remake the first movie. That's a remake, but only for the first 10 minutes or so. And they do a condensed remake. Instead of having Ash go to the cabin with all of his friends, it's just Ash and his girlfriend. And then the main points of the first film happens. He chops off her head, buries her. He plays the tape that, makes the demons. I said that backwards. He summons the demons before he chops off his head. It's not about,
he murders his girlfriend.
Yes. But they just omit the other characters just to speed things along.
Right.
Yeah.
And then once he walks out of the cabin and the sun's coming up and the evil force, which is like this, you see from it's like the camera perspective is like this evil force that flies through the woods in all the movies.
Yeah.
And which I always thought was really cool.
Yeah.
And you
it
hear
is.
like the effects like all these demon voices, and it like flies at Ash, and that's where the first movie ends. And once it hits that point in the second movie, about 7-10 minutes into it, I
Yeah,
don't remember
real
exactly.
quick.
Yeah. Then from that point on, it is an absolute direct sequel. One thing that they should have included in the beginning of their retelling that they didn't is the destruction of the Necronomicon. Because they show the Necronomicon, which is the Book of the Dead, but then that never shows it getting destroyed like it was at the end of the first movie. But if you pay attention, after the Force hits him, it hits Ash, and it's like he's flying through the woods, and it becomes a true sequel, it never shows the book again. Because it does stay true to the first movie. You should be able to watch the first movie, then as soon as that force hits him at the end and the credits go, you could splice it into that part of the second movie, and Ash would look a bit older, or whatever. But other than that, it works. The continuity fits.
I never noticed that the Necronomicon doesn't show up again.
No, what does show up are the pages of the Necronomicon that Professor Nobi's daughter brings to the cabin. And so people are like, I saw one comment that was just like the dumbest thing ever. He was like, wait.
What comment?
There was a comment on the IMDb message board, I believe, for Evil Dead 2, that was saying, so if this is like a sequel and not a remake, then you're telling me that Ash goes to the cabin with his friends in Evil Dead 1, everybody gets hacked up except for him, and then at the end when the evil force is flying at him, he somehow survives, he goes home, gets a new girlfriend that also happens to be named Linda, he goes back to the cabin at the start of Evil Dead 2, then he's stupid enough to read from the book again or play the tapes that play the demon incantations that summon the demons again, and is all surprised by what happens. That's the stupidest theory I've ever heard. It's like, you fucking idiot. It's because the first 10 or so minutes of Evil Dead 2 is not a sequel. It's a retelling of the first movie in a condensed format.
Angry.
Anyway, I remember when I first saw Evil Dead 2, I was mad that they introduced these other characters, because I just wanted to see Ash in the cabin dealing with
What's funny?
the madness.
When we were watching it, I didn't even remember that there were characters other than Ash. I just remembered Ash dealing with a bunch of goofy shit.
Well, because that's the most memorable part of the movie.
Yeah.
It's just Ash going insane in the cabin.
Yeah.
And the cabin's basically alive. Everything is alive around him. And it's just yeah.
And then after he gets hit by the evil, he becomes possessed until the sun comes up.
That's practically a different character.
What?
What? I said that there weren't... I couldn't remember there being other characters.
I don't think Greg is making the point that that's a new character.
No, but I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I was a little off base there.
Sorry.
Yeah, so when he gets possessed by the Force, I guess is what happened, right? Because he gets pushed through the woods and he lands in the puddle. And I love that scene where he's just his face is submerged and he's just bubbling up because he's down. He seems for so long he's just there, and then he suddenly lifts up, and you don't expect him to have prosthetics on his face, and then he's a deadite. But then it gets driven away by the sun. Do you think it totally leaves his body, or you think it just gets pushed away into his subconscious? And because later on he becomes a deadite again, do you think he got repossessed, or you think it just it rose back within him?
Well, I'm not sure because spoiler, his hand gets possessed.
Right.
Now, I'm trying to remember. Did his hand get injured by Linda?
Linda's decapitated head bit his hand.
Bit his hand. So he gets possessed 3 times in this movie.
Yeah, his hand goes bad.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then he chops it off with a chainsaw. And then
Now, does he use the chainsaw to chop off his hand in the second one, or is it just in Army of Darkness when they do the exact same thing again by
because
retelling?
again, they didn't have the rights to Evil Dead 2, so
Yeah.
they had to
Oh my
reshoot
God.
a bunch of it.
Yeah, because that he's got like his knee on his wrist, and it shows him take the chainsaw to his hand. But I remember in
pretty
Evil Dead
artistic.
2, he's like impaled his hand and then cuts it off.
He does it with a chainsaw.
Okay.
Yeah,
but
it's still with the
right.
chainsaw, but he does like stab it, like because his hand's going for a knife on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
and he's pretending to be knocked out or whatever, and then he stabs. And he was so good at acting, like you know,
Oh
doing
my
the
gosh.
body acting with
That
his
was
hand
so
being possessed.
Good, yeah.
Like, Bruce Campbell doesn't get enough credit for his acting ability because, like, okay, maybe his specialty is, like, in over-the-top cheesy stuff, but he's so good at it. And, like, you know, just the way he was able to manipulate his hand to make it seem like it's moving beyond what he's doing was just, it was expertly done.
Well, in his book, he talks about, like, him and, like, the Raimis, they just loved Three Stooges, so they were all about physical comedy.
Yeah.
Shemping is a term that they use a lot about people filling in for those roles of the Deadites. You know, those guys had been, for easily a decade, been doing physical comedy, and it really comes through clearly.
Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know, Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi, the director of the movies, Bruce Campbell being the star, they grew up together in Michigan, which is where we're from. Somewhere around Lansing, I think.
Detroit?
Right? Was it in the Detroit area?
Dearborn,
Dearborn?
I believe, is where Bruce Campbell's from, and then they went to Michigan State together.
That's right. And yeah, and they have a tribute to that in the movies where someone's wearing like a Michigan State university.
Yeah.
That was one of the coolest things about Army of Darkness is
Yeah,
early on when he was like, this sweet baby is made in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I was like, whoa, that's my home city. That's fucking awesome. This is the coolest movie of all time.
Pretty cool. I don't know if it was one of the coolest parts of the movie, but I mean, that's pretty cool for us.
Like, that's one thing we have in Grand Rapids. We have, Anthony Kiedis.
I think that's the one thing that we have in Grand Rapids.
We also have Scully.
Oh,
Why can't I think of her name?
Oh, Gillian Anderson.
Yes, Gillian Anderson lived in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, she swam in my grandma's pool, I think.
That's true. Anyway, back to Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi. So they grew up and they made a lot of Super 8 films together, mostly, I think, slapstick comedy stuff, like various Three Stooges inspired. But then I think Sam Raimi did like one short that was like a suspense one, and he's like, hey, I can do this. I think I could do a horror film. So by borrowing money from friends and family, they were able to raise like $1,600 in order to make a short film called Within the Woods. Yeah. Which is basically proto Evil Dead. And I remember when they released one of the many, many fucking additions to the Evil Dead. I think that's been released more than any other movie, probably, right? Those movies, that trilogy. Yeah, so one of the additions you could buy, and it looked like the Necronomicon.
Yeah.
And I bought that
because... the rubber edition.
Yeah,
right?
the rubber Necronomicon edition. I bought it specifically because I already owned the movie like twice, I think. And they said that it would include Within the Woods. And then I bought it. It did not include Within the Woods, and I felt so gypped. I was so mad. But, you know, still I have a pretty cool Necronomicon.
It's pretty cool, even though it's falling apart.
And unable to be put on a shelf next to any other DVDs.
Right, yeah, because it won't fit properly. Thanks. But it looks cool.
Yeah. Put it on your mantle. Whatever.
So they made Within the Woods, and that allowed them to get enough investment to get like not a shitload of money, but for an indie filmmaker, they got enough to be able to shoot a real movie. And they just went to Tennessee and they filmed it, and then they managed to get Stephen King's attention. And Stephen King was like, well, he saw it at a festival, I believe, in like 81, and he wrote a blurb for it. He listed it as one of his favorite movies, and so that enabled them to get like a wide distribution deal. And I think it was released in 83 finally. But it was mostly shot in 79, and it has a very 70s look to it, like the way Ash is dressed, or Ashley.
Man, I can't remember the first time that I ever saw the first Evil Dead movie. Probably with you, Greg. But then we actually, the three of us, saw it in the theater. They had like a local viewing of it.
Well, a few years ago, Grindhouse did a tour of it, and I think it was a 16 millimeter print that they had put out, and it looked great. Like, it was so raw. It was like actually probably being there in the theater. I know one of my friends was convinced it was remastered. He was wrong.
Yes.
But it looked great.
No, yeah. It looked like great, gritty, original print of the movie. And it's my thoughts on Evil Dead 1 today are... I like the movie. I love the artistry behind it and what they were able to accomplish on like being so inexperienced in just like the experimentation that went into it and just how miserable they were where they were filming it.
Oh,
because
yeah. That's
they didn't have like working plumbing or anything.
Yeah.
And then it started getting cold because they went into the winter time.
There's one of the most memorable things that I actually read like most of Bruce Campbell's autobiography.
If Chins Could Kill.
If Chins Could Kill, yes. When I was in high school. And yeah, one of the most memorable things was just how miserable they were doing the Evil Dead movies. Yeah.
But, I mean, I guess it works for a horror film.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Oh, yeah. You gotta be miserable.
And that's why the Shemping thing was so important, was because they poor Ted Raimi had to start wearing all this makeup and pretending to be every other Deadite in the movie.
Because all the other actors left before they were like totally done with everything. Yeah, because they were miserable and they got most of their stuff done, but then they realized that they had to do reshoots, and so Ted Raimi filled in, Sam Raimi's brother. Is that the book that you had? Him, because Jessica actually met Bruce Campbell briefly. It was that. Did you have him sign If Chins Could Kill?
I can't remember. I did have him sign a comic book, an Army of Darkness comic book.
Yeah,
and it wasn't even like one of the cool alternate cover comic books. It had a lame movie still cover.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm so embarrassed. He probably thought I was so lame having that version of the comic. Anyway.
You're not a real fan.
I know, yeah, that's exactly probably what he thought. Anyway, so I had already gotten it signed by the artist of the comic, too. And it has great art in it. But, oh my god, that was one of the most embarrassing moments of my freaking life. Was meeting Bruce Campbell.
Why?
And feeling like such an asshole.
Because of the cover?
Just because I got just too starstruck. You know, and just became an idiot and, like, couldn't think of, like, a proper thing to say.
Well, what did you say?
Oh my gosh, I gotta relive this again. Oh my god. So he, I don't know, he's basically like, oh, so who's this guy? Like, the guy who signed it already. And, like, the guy had doodled, like, a picture of Ash on it and stuff. He's like, oh, who's this guy? I was like, it's the artist. I go to comic conventions or like a lot of comic conventions or something like that, something like super painful. And he was like, oh, well, la-di-da. It's so embarrassing. And he I don't know, he called me darling for some reason.
He liked you.
No, that doesn't mean he liked me. He was like, well, here you go, darling.
Oh,
I signed it. There you go.
Him.
Poor awkward darling.
Oh, and I got my picture taken and I looked super awkward in it. Like, they got me mid-talking.
Nice.
And he looks, like, annoyed at me. It's like, great, wonderful picture of me with Bruce Campbell. Fucking fantastic.
And how old were you at the time?
16.
Nah, well, you're young.
I'm
sure he has so many super awkward encounters with fans.
Far from the worst.
Yeah, so far from
God,
the worst.
I'm sure. But, I bet the worst probably isn't embarrassed about it being the worst. You know? Anyway.
Yeah, I was supposed to go to that signing. So.
Well.
Yeah, but my friend didn't pick me up to bring me to it, so I didn't get to meet Bruce Campbell.
Well, I'm so sorry that you didn't get to have the awkward encounter that I got.
Yeah.
You probably would have done so much better, too. You're so much cooler than me.
No, I don't know. I can kind of get weird meeting my heroes.
Just have like a real like predator bro like
handshake. Yeah. You might have like
Bruce.
Asked
how satisfying would that be?
You might have like asked him to be in one of your movies or something.
I probably would have.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that would have been terrible.
Anyway, back to Army of Darkness. There was this one time that Greg and I actually wanted to watch Army of Darkness on a field trip where we had like free reign of like movies to watch on a bus to Chicago from Michigan. Mm-hmm. And somehow we convinced them to watch Army of Darkness, or at least Greg convinced them to watch Army of Darkness.
Was that
on the
your
bus.
copy then?
Yeah.
You brought it along?
Yeah. We were all watching the movie on the bus. This bus full of an art class going to an art museum in Chicago, and it didn't go over very well.
No, as soon as like one-liners started coming out, there was audible groans from everyone. Yeah, like I remember.
Isn't that like early on in the movie? Like
yes, it was very early on, and
like,
then
jack shit. I think that's one of the early ones.
I think it was "Give Me Some Sugar, Baby," and then
that was
like the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
And then we watched Meet the Parents.
Had
an orgasm,
damn it. That's right. What?
Every girl on the bus had an orgasm
No,
when he said, "Give me some sugar,
girl
baby."
was like, "Turn it off!"
Because they were too turned on. They couldn't handle
Oh
how
yeah,
hot he was
probably. They're
being.
like, "Please turn it off. I can't deal with it." And
Wow.
yeah, no, it was awful.
So they demanded that you guys turn it off at that point?
Yeah.
They had a vote. It was so humiliating because
Were you the only two that voted to keep it on?
Well, yeah, us and Derek, the guy who originally lent me Army of Darkness in 7th grade.
Always having your back, Derek.
Yeah. Yep.
It's not a movie for everybody. It's like a great litmus test for friendship. You know? Do you like Army of Darkness?
Yeah, but
No?
a lot of the people
Fuck off.
a lot of the people who were our friends voted against it.
Oh, they shouldn't have been your friends.
Oh, man.
Not after that.
Oh, my
That's
God.
a friendship killer, voting to get rid of Army of Darkness. And what they watch instead?
Meet the Parents.
Meet the Parents.
Ugh.
Ah. Did they make another vote for that one? You guys didn't get to...
I think there were 2 tapes. Army of Darkness.
Or
No,
Meet the Parents.
we watched Grease. I remember that. The guy.
How long was this bus ride?
The guy.
It's 3 hours there, 3 hours back.
And the guy who played Satan Ninja in our promo videos, I think Grease is one of his favorite movies, so he was very happy. He was.
Oh,
there.
he was there too, and he voted to not have Army
I
of
don't
Darkness be
remember.
on?
Did he vote?
Because I'm going to take him out of our promo videos if he voted to not have Army of Darkness on.
I don't remember. I think he was okay with Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever.
Bullshit.
Anyway, so yeah, Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, so Evil Dead 2...
Evil Dead 2 was an amazing movie.
Well, after the success of Evil Dead, because it did really well for its budget and everything, Sam Raimi wanted to do a crime movie inspired by Three Stooges type slapstick. Did you ever see Crime Wave?
No, I never saw Crime Wave.
I don't think you're alone. I don't think anybody has seen Crime
No,
Wave.
we
But that's
read
the
about
movie
it.
that Sam Raimi did with Bruce Campbell after
Yeah.
The Evil Dead. And the Coen brothers were involved in it, because Sam Raimi was living with at least one of the Coen brothers at the time. And I think they may have helped write it. There was no audience for it. I don't think audiences cared about Crime Wave, and critics didn't seem to care about it. And since it just didn't take off, he was like, well, time to go back to The Evil Dead well, because that was successful. So I think he was just like, well, since I can't make my crime comedy movie I wanted to make, or he did, but nobody cared about it, I'm going to make Evil Dead a comedy. And I wonder what that must have been like for hardcore Evil Dead fans, hardcore fans of the first movie, who just like loved the first movie, to go into the theater, pumped to see Evil Dead 2, and then it's a silly slapstick horror. Like, were they pissed off? Do you think that, like, any of them left the theater? Like, what the fuck is this? This isn't brutal horror. I thought he has, like, a bigger budget now. He could go even further with, like, this brutal, intense horror. And instead, there's fucking Three Stooges routines going on. Like, because everybody I know is like the three of us, where they got into it in reverse order. They got into it through Army of Darkness. Like, I don't know anybody who just discovered it through Evil Dead and was a huge fan that was later, like, alienated by Evil Dead 2, but I'm sure that had to have happened.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear.
Well, I think, Evil Dead 2 was such a bigger success than Evil Dead somehow.
That it just eclipsed it?
Yeah, that it just eclipsed it. So, I don't know. It's still brutal. It's
but
insane.
it's a silly brutal though.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same seediness as Evil Dead.
But it has something more than that, though. It's very, very artistic and very, very unique. It's not just like a brutal horror movie. It is incredibly unique.
Right.
I don't think I've ever seen a movie that's quite like it.
Yeah, because this time, instead of having to film it on location in the woods, they built a giant soundstage within a high school auditorium, and so they were able to do like more crazy stuff with camera work, and obviously they had a way bigger budget.
It was incredibly stylistic.
Yeah.
Sam Raimi didn't have to hang upside down from
From
bee.
the rafters, yeah. And the effects in it are fucking amazing. To give it ratings, I suppose my rating would be 5 out of 5, because it's just like, it is like a perfect horror comedy.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
Wow, okay, and that's our first 5 out of 5
Our
rating
first
we've done.
perfect movie that we've reviewed.
Yeah, it's just like the effects are incredible. Like, even though I'm not a Three Stooges guy at all, like the humor still works for me. Just like its combination of the horror with the humor. Like, I don't know, that's always spoke to me. That's why I like became such a big fan of the Misfits, because I love that juxtaposition of like he's singing about horrific things like raping babies and stuff, but in like this really melodic, like, you know, way that's just like, I love that juxtaposition. Just like works so well for me. It just like tickles me, you know.
Yeah.
This brutality and camp.
Yeah.
With style.
Like, that's a big thing about 70s horror, was very straight-faced and brutal. You know, you have Last House on the Left, which, it has the wacky cops with their silly music, which almost ruins the whole movie. Which, it actually did. It ruined the movie.
That movie's garbage.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree. I'm not a fan. I know it's got like a huge fan base and stuff because it's such a cult classic. And there's like, you know, it's like a rape revenge story for anybody who hasn't seen it. It's one of the quintessential rape revenge movies, like I Spit on Your Grave, which I think I Spit on Your Grave was better, even though that was kind of hard to watch too.
Yeah.
It was like 40 minutes of the girl getting brutalized, and it's like, Jesus Christ.
But still, like, somehow better than I Spit on Your Grave.
It was still better than I Spit on Your
Grave.
Yes.
It's still better than
Last House on the Left.
But,
and then like The Hills Have Eyes was also very similar. Even like 1980, you have
Maniac.
But I liked Maniac because that had a style to
movie.
it. That was very stylistic, and like the head explosion in Maniac was one of the best head explosions in movies ever.
Savini blowing his own head up.
Yes. And the fucking hot ass chick from Star Crash was in it, like way out of his league. Like I don't care how fucked up you are, when you get that hot babe from Star Crash, you stop killing people, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna settle now because I should never be able to be with a babe like this. There's no way I deserve this at all, and I will change my life. I'll throw out my mannequins. Sorry for people who haven't seen this movie, don't know what we're talking about, but you should watch it if you can handle some stylish, stalkery slasher stuff from the early 80s. That's about as good as it gets for that type of movie.
Right.
And it has like a really ominous soundtrack and stuff too. And it's just,
I love that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good movie.
It's a good movie.
Fuck Last House on the Left.
It'll make you feel bad, but it's a good movie.
But anyway, where I'm going with this is that the 70s was just very like kind of straight-faced and brutal, and then movies made in the early 80s were kind of similar to that. There's a lot of slashers in the early 80s, like The Burning and Friday the 13th, of course, you know, one of the big classics. But then as the 80s went on, horror started to get more fun. You know, it started to get less scary. You have Freddy Krueger like giving one-liners all the time. He becomes a goofy guy. You look at Friday the 13th 1, and then you compare that to like part 6, where it has like Alice Cooper music videos, and like that's what I love. That's like where horror really intersects with me, is when it got campy and fun in like the mid 80s. Yeah. You know, like I can appreciate the early stuff. I like The Evil Dead, especially for the artistry of it and what they were able to accomplish. But it's just once it got like more fun and campy, like that just really resonates with me. And Evil Dead 2 compared to Evil Dead 1 is a great example of the way horror shifted to become fun.
Yeah, I was thinking of the like Return of the Living Dead. I think is I love Night of the Living Dead, but man, I would watch Return of the Living Dead over Night of the Living Dead any day of the week. Even the second one is great.
Yeah, the second one, it has the second Return of the Living Dead has a lot of things in common with the second Demons movie.
Yeah.
Because they use a lot of the same cast members, but they play totally different characters. And it's basically a redo of the first one, but just like with a different setting.
I didn't think about
different
that.
situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to be reviewing Demons and Demons too, so I guess we could talk about that then. It makes more sense. But yeah, I just really love the campy 80s fun horror films is like just totally my thing. Night of the Demons, Trick or Treat. Yeah, there's so many great movies. And yeah, Evil Dead is just like a pinnacle of mid-80s horror comedy. It's great. Satan Factor is
Oh my gosh. Well,
strong.
wait a minute.
What?
Satan? Is it Satan? Or is it like, you know...
Sumerian
gods,
demons.
Sumerian demons.
It doesn't matter. It's Satan. It's demons. Deadites. Satan.
Isn't that pre-Satan? It's older than Satan himself.
It has a strong Satan factor. You're reading an evil book of the dead. There are drawings in blood. There are lots of blood. There are demons. Lots of chopping. That all goes in the Satan factor. Okay.
Sure. I mean,
I don't care if it's technically Sumerian demons. Ninja factor in Evil Dead 2.
Nope. No ninjas. No ninjas.
There are no ninjas in that movie. The hand gets pretty stealthy. Hides in the wall, you know, the disembodied hand.
No ninja factor, zero ninja factor.
Okay, zero ninja factor. Then the 80s factor, I think that, like I said, it encapsulates the like horror, fun, cheesy aesthetic of like the mid 80s.
It's very much like you were talking about, that intersection between comedy and horror is just such an 80s, it's such a unique 80s style that I don't think has ever like really been recaptured.
Yeah, even when they try, it's not the same. Like there are like a lot of straight to video movies like Pumpkin Carver or like, you know, whatever bullshit that they're like Full Moon's putting out, that it just campy, low budget horror films made 2000 plus just doesn't have the same vibe to it. It doesn't have the same charm.
Slither was pretty good.
Slither was awesome.
Yeah.
James Gunn,
that's a little different.
Loves, I mean, he grew up working with trauma. I mean, it's probably I would say that's fits even more with that sort of mid 80s, because one of his mentors is Lloyd Kaufman.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
it was very inspired by, God, what's the Monster Squad director? What was this other movie that he made?
RoboCop 3?
No, did he make RoboCop 3?
Yeah,
really?
That was the end of his career.
Shit, yeah, no wonder.
Night of the Creeps.
Yes, Night of the Creeps. Yeah, obviously Slither was very inspired by Night of the Creeps, and but yeah, Slither was great. Slither's a great example of someone doing kind of a throwback horror film and actually able to successfully capture some of the charm. And I have to believe that is possible, because that's what we do with our comic, because we try to capture that 80s charm. And a lot of people just, I don't think they're able to do that successsually.
Yeah.
I think we are.
Yeah, you guys are doing great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Hey, wait, what about Cabin Fever? Especially, Cabin Fever 2.
Oh man, I love that movie.
I've never seen the second one.
Not seen Cabin Fever 2. Do yourself a treat. It is nuts.
Yeah.
I also just think that I think that the 80s was just a perfect time for horror. It was pre-cell phones. Like every horror film has to try to come up with an excuse for why the cell phones aren't working or whatever. 80s, you don't got to worry about that. And it's just like, just the type of cast that they can have in an 80s horror film is just perfect for it. You know, like the punks and the, you know, everything. It's just...
what's the equivalent
and the music,
today?
too. Like the cock rock music. Like, I love how so many 80s horror films have, like, cock rock soundtracks. Like the Dream Warriors. A Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Yeah, Adam loves that song.
Yeah, the ending by Dokken.
Yeah.
I fucking love that song.
Wonderful.
And once you get to the late 80s, they started having rap outros for like the credits, and that just doesn't do it for me as much.
Not a big fan of Nightmare on My Street.
What?
Fresh
Yeah,
Prince.
how could you hate that?
Best.
Come on.
It doesn't compare to Dokken.
No, it does.
No, it doesn't.
It's just as good.
No.
If not better.
No.
I think it's better. I like it more.
Yeah, and of course, another problem with comparing like more modern cheesy horror films to the 80s is that practical effects are just way more charming to me than bad CG.
Yeah, I can't agree more.
Yeah. And now, like, a lot of those movies that you mentioned Slither, but when we look at a lot of these movies that are paying homage to those now, they're like way outrageous, like Hobo with a Shotgun.
Oh, yeah.
It's awesome.
I actually really liked Hobo with a Shotgun.
Everything that you loved about the 80s dialed up to 11. And
hey, what's wrong with that?
I'm just saying, it's not the same thing.
Well, I think he's like given the same example that like the difference between something like Kung Fury compared to Satan Ninja, where Kung Fury just like takes it into like a whole new level of parody and just like, yeah, and it's not even cranked up to 11. It's cranked up to like 1 million.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, you're battling a robot transformer arcade machine on the moon.
There's a Triceratops cop.
Yeah. Which a lot of that stuff is actually very 90s.
Yeah, it is, actually.
Yeah, which, by his own admission, like, Streets of Rage was a big influence, and that's 90s.
Yeah,
also,
who cares? He didn't call it, like, Kung Fury 1980X, so he can do that.
That's true. Yeah, and a lot of people tend to throw, like, 80s and 90s camp stuff together.
Which I don't get.
Well...
Whatever. They're different.
It's kind of weird how we have this thing where we just compartmentalize decades, like, you know, like all of a sudden
nope, not weird.
The date switches
it did
to 1990
and then it was the 90s.
It's not like everything changes overnight,
it did.
though.
It did.
Like a lot of early 90s stuff is very much in the same vein as the 80s stuff.
It became the 90s. It's different.
Everyone started wearing flannel and ripped up jeans.
Yep.
No, there is like a noticeable shift, mostly in like 82 or 80, or sorry, 92 or 93, or whenever the Smells Like Teen Spirit came out.
Yeah, never mind.
That very much shifted culture away, and that's like the real death knell for the 80s to me.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that there's things from the late 80s I think of being 90s thing, like Epic by Faith No More. I don't think of that being an 80s song.
Yeah.
I think of that as being like an early
Yeah.
90s.
You know what else was super 90s, but actually came out in 89? The first Nine Inch Nails album, Pretty Hate Machine.
Really?
It's so
It
like
is
I can't
very
like we
90s.
had that on our 80s playlist, and I had to remove it because I was like, no, this can't be on an 80s playlist. It's so fucking 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. And then there's some stuff that came out in like 1980 or 1990 or 91 that very much feels like it, belongs in the 80s. Like the Ninja Turtles movie feels pretty 80s to me.
Oh,
Yeah, but I
definitely.
wouldn't put it on an 80s like playlist or something like that.
Actually, pretty sure I have the Ninja Turtles soundtrack in my car right now.
Well, good.
The second one's the one that has a Vanilla Ice song, right?
Yeah, no,
Yep.
I've got the much superior.
I don't remember
the
any
one that-
music from the first one.
9.95 is on it. It's a great hit by Spunkadelic. I know too much shit about bad 90s soundtrack.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So 80s factor for Evil Dead 2, I'd say
8 out of 8. 80s out of 8.
boop factor for Evil Dead 2 is pretty much non-existent.
I don't
Gonna have to disagree. Linda gets topless without her head.
Yeah, Corpse Linda is topless. She's resurrected, and when she's stop motion animation doing her dance. That's actually one of
topless during that?
Yes,
I
she
can't
was, but
I didn't even remember
she's just
that.
like kind of an emaciated corpse with tits. And
yeah, I guess I just didn't see it.
it's not like the boobs aren't really.
You weren't a teenage boy when you watched it.
Even as a teenage boy, I don't think that would have done anything.
All
for me
right, speak for
whatsoever.
yourself.
Right. But that is actually one of my favorite parts is when she's doing her like ballerina dance with her like decapitated head, and then when she just like jumps off into the darkness.
Yeah.
I love that part. So chopping off your possessed hand with the chainsaw factor, I thought this was probably one of the highest movies I've seen with that.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah,
Right. Absolutely.
yeah.
Great movie. Highly recommend it.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I think this is a little different because this was a movie that we were quite familiar with. Usually we're reviewing or discussing movies
wasn't.
that we aren't familiar with at
Like,
all.
even though I had seen it, I was barely... Like, I remembered Deerhead coming to life and being goofy. I remember lots of, like,
well, it gets
weird,
referenced on the internet and
weird
stuff.
colored blood. No, I vividly remember, like, seeing it,
Yeah, the weird colored blood is because
Yeah.
they were trying to not get, like, an X rating, so to tone down some of the over-the-top gore, they
Yep.
were making it various colors, which just kind of makes it more disturbing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely remember that. I remember I'll Swallow Your Soul because we quoted
How
that
could
a
you
bunch. Yeah. I remember a few things, but that was it. You know?
That reminds me, I'll swallow your soul because that was a sound bite in the Doom WAD for the Army of. Did you ever play the Army of Darkness Doom WAD?
No.
WADs were basically like modded levels for Doom that players created and uploaded to the internet. And there was a total conversion that was for Army of Darkness. It was like my two favorite things combined, and it was okay. It was pretty cool. Yeah, the AOD.WAD is pretty awesome. I mean, it just makes sense because you already have demons, you have a shotgun, you have a chainsaw, so it wasn't that hard to.
Were there just random Ash quotes with like,
Yes.
shoot the shotgun, hail to the king, baby?
Yes, actually there was. So it was very Duke Nukem.
I was gonna say, like,
Shake 'em,
Yeah, right.
baby.
But the original, Actually, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe a Duke Nukem 3D had come out by the time the AOD WAD had come out. I don't know. I don't know when Duke Nukem 3D came out. Okay, now we can talk about how Gregg is the reason that Jessica and I first met. So I was in a band, the EverDead. It was like a horror-themed rock band, doing my rock star thing in my 20s. Gregg was a young fan that I talked to on the internet, and he was like our only local fan in our city. Most of our fans were scattered around the world.
And completely by coincidence, too. I discovered you guys not even realizing that you were from Grand Rapids.
You were just into the horror rock genre.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you discovered that the EverDead was actually from his city. He's like, whoa, I can check this band out. I can see them live. And then you went to a very underwhelming show. I apologize for that.
It's all right. We went to Denny's afterwards.
And then, since he was our one local fan, we were like, hey, come to Denny's with us, Greg.
And I was like, hey, Mom, I'm going to go to Denny's with these strangers.
Wait, how old were you? 16?
16 years old by myself.
Oh, that's old enough.
Ripe.
Old enough to do it in Michigan.
Yeah, we were good.
Yeah.
Right?
You guys were great.
Yeah, except you didn't think that we tipped because you didn't know that tipping on the credit card was a thing.
This is also nearly 15 years ago.
Right. So, anyway, Greg was good friends with Jessica, and you gave Jessica a mix of
Yeah, it was like a mix
rock,
of horror rock.
and it had the EverDead on there, and Slumber Party Massacre, an EverDead song, became Jessica's favorite song when she was, 15?
Mm-hmm. I think, 16 or something. So, like, 2 years after, because I'm 2 years younger than Greg. 2 years after he had the fateful Denny's magical dinner, whatever.
But by the time you were a fan, the EverDead had kind of just fallen apart, and we didn't do anything, so you were never able to see us play.
But whatever, I loved that song, and I loved the art that you guys had for your album.
Right.
It was amazing. I loved it. I printed it out, and
it inspired you to
day.
become the artist that you are.
Yeah,
right
they had a picture of what was this? Like the insert for your album?
Yeah, and it was our T-shirt design as well.
Yeah, a picture of a guy with a drill dick getting a blowjob. Like sitting on a toilet seat, getting a blowjob from a girl, and the drill dick like penetrating through her skull. And the guy, it was a greaser guy, I guess. Yeah, and he was just like, had this like oops face, like, like, I don't know, like shrugging. Like, oops, I penetrated your skull.
Yeah, that was my concept. And when I told the artist, I think the grease guy was kind of supposed to be me, but it was also kind of supposed to be the main villain from Slumber Party Massacre 2, which was the inspiration for the song. Kind of the inspiration for the song.
The driller killer.
Yeah, and then it also had text in the back of the shirt that said "Blood and cum shooting everywhere."
Oh yeah, one of the best lyrics I had ever heard at that point, and have ever heard ever.
One of my proudest moments in my professional career, that was air quotes there, was when I got an email from this teenager who said that he wore his shirt, the EverDead shirt, to school, and he got suspended for wearing it. Yeah, that was awesome. Anyway.
But the reason why I discovered you guys was because I was looking at the art by this French serial killer.
The vampire killer.
The vampire killer. I wish I could remember his name, but under...
Nicholas Claus?
Yeah, that's it. Nico Klaus.
Santa Claus? Basically?
Yes,
yes, basically it was Santa Claus.
The vampiric Santa Claus of Paris.
Oh, wow.
But under he had only like 3 bands under music.
That he linked to, yeah.
And
one was the EverDead.
And one of them was the EverDead, the mp3.com website.
That's so good.
I remember we used to think about like, oh, what if like when he gets out of prison, he like comes to like a show. That would be really weird.
When would he get out of prison? Do serial killers get out of prison?
I think he only killed one person.
So
I guess he wasn't a serial killer. I don't remember. I don't know what his story was.
Drank a lot of blood and dug up a lot of dead bodies.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I think he worked with corpses, and then he got a little.
Oh man, that's
crazy.
That's the worst when they work with
crazy
corpses.
with the corpses.
That's like so many people's fear. I think.
Yeah, but it keeps like the rest of us safe.
And they're dead. Yeah, they're
so
objects.
many people don't believe that though.
And that corpses are dead?
Yeah.
That's a weird belief. I didn't know this.
Yeah, they think
what do they believe?
I don't know. People are bothered by stuff happening to their corpses.
Because they're still alive?
Yeah. Yeah, no, seriously. I've heard people say, like, I'm just afraid that, like, you're still aware when you're dead. Like, your corpse just, like...
I did see a Tales from the Crypt episode that I think was from Humphrey Bogart's body when he was dead. Did you see that one? And so the whole episode was like he was dead, but he's just trapped in his body, and he was fully aware and could see out of his dead eyes. And it's just like, it's all a point of view episode. Like he's just seeing all the stuff happen around him. It was
Jesus,
weird.
for a full hour?
Yeah, it was actually entertaining. It was good. It was well done. So anyway, Gregg discovered the EverDead through that killer dude's website. Then he, in turn, introduced Jessica to the EverDead's music. She became a fan, but she could never see us play or anything because the band had stopped performing at that point. We no longer played live. So years later, I was looking for an actress to be in a movie I was trying to shoot called Raz McFurian versus Demon Cult of Final Winter, which was very inspired by The Final Sacrifice, which is famous for Mystery Science Theater 3000's lampoon of it. And I needed an actress to be in the movie, and my brother's friend was going to a college class with Jessica at the time. I did not know who Jessica was. I'd never met her. But he told my brother, like, hey, I go to school with this blue-haired chick who's an EverDead fan. And so my brother told me, and I was like, whoa, an 18-year-old blue-haired chick who's into the EverDead? I will talk to her. And so I passed along my contact information, and she messaged me online, and we started talking. And it led to us talking on the phone, and right away I asked if she would be interested in acting in a movie that I was making.
And then it's been love ever since, right, guys?
Of course. And Jessica did end up being in the movie, but I have not released it yet.
No,
And,
yeah,
I just
someday,
need to,
baby.
I need to edit it together, and because I edited together like a rough cut of it, and I wasn't happy with that, so I want to go back and re-edit the whole thing from scratch. And I'll put it out, yeah. That's one of my upcoming projects. Now that my book's out, definitely going to have Raz McFurian out. And you're in Raz McFurian too, aren't you?
No, I don't think I am.
You're not.
Are you sure?
Pretty sure I'm not.
So because of Gregg introducing you to my band, I was later able to... you contacted me through a friend of my brother's, and that is what got us talking.
Yeah, and I thought that you were like just some dumb guy in a band, and I was very impressed that you were not a dumb guy.
Why did you think I was dumb?
Probably because of the live audio that I heard of you like taunting an audience and stuff.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we played a Battle of the Bands show, and every other band that played the show were all nu metal bands for the most part. And then we were there, and it was almost like the guy who booked us there almost did it as like a joke because he knew that like we didn't fit in at all, and because it's like much more of a mainstream thing that was like put on by the local radio station that I hated. And so I had gotten sick the night before, and when I sang, I just like I was being very belligerent and antagonistic toward the audience. Like trying to get people to come up on stage and fight me and stuff. It's embarrassing. I cringe listening to it now.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's pretty great.
You heard it back before you met me as well, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
So did you think I was also an idiot?
No.
No, you just thought I was an angry guy.
I just thought you were really angry.
I was. I kind of had like a self-destructive period, and I just like didn't care. And plus, maybe it came from probably being a fan of the Dwarves.
Yeah, I was gonna say Dwarves, and I mean.
Those punk bands who just didn't give a fuck. They'd go on stage and just do whatever. Like, I wasn't G.G. Allen level, like, at all. I wouldn't get naked, or actually, I did strip into my boxers a couple times. But
yeah. Did you throw shit in the crowd ever?
No, I forgot to do that. Never killed a cat.
Adam, you're so the opposite of G.G. Allen in, like, so many ways.
Thank you. That's a very nice compliment.
I think you've already outlived him.
Yeah.
You love kitty cats. You hate filth in all forms. You were very uncomfortable having blood on you, I think, at some point. Fake blood.
I had like a gay zombie come up on stage and cover me in fake blood while licking me.
Yeah.
Wait, what's his name?
Maris the Great.
Yeah.
He's still around.
I don't know. There was this guy who was like a zombie, like almost like an Elvira type character. I guess he wanted to he was like a promo guy, except he was done up in really impressive zombie makeup, and he was a gay zombie. That was his gimmick. And he hosted a horror festival that my band played, and he talked to me before we went on, and he was very careful to never let anybody see him out of his makeup, because he was always in character. And he talked to me before the show, and he's like, Adam Dravian, I'm gonna come up on stage, and I'm gonna start covering you in fake blood, like that's gonna drool out of my mouth. Is that okay? I'll wait for you to be shirtless. And I said, yeah, Maris, that's great. And it's like, he's in full zombie makeup with the creepy contacts and stuff. It's like, man, this is really unsettling talking to him. But because he was a gay character, like, I don't know if he was really gay or not. But part of his shtick was that he like had a thing for me. Like he was playing that up over the course of the weekend. And so when he got on stage, and I didn't know he would start licking me, because he like came up like he was gonna like bite my neck. and then he drooled out all this fake blood. So I was like, you know, my bare chest was just getting covered in fake blood. And then he started like licking me with like his long tongue and like sliding his tongue around on my neck. And I was just like pretending to be into it just to like, you know, for the spectacle of the whole thing.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Yeah. One of the gayest moments of my life. Up there. Speaking of my band and Evil Dead, the first song I ever wrote actually was inspired by Evil Dead 1 and 2. And it was just called The Evil Dead. So that's like the very first EverDead song. And so...
Yeah, there's even a music video out there for it.
Oh, God.
And I don't know why you hate it so much.
Because it was recorded at a party after we were all drunk and everybody left except for me and a couple band members. And some of the guys who were in the video weren't even in the band, so they just threw on a mask and just pretended to play or whatever. It's because it's painful. That's why.
Nah, it's fun.
Yeah, so that's on YouTube if you want to see it. It's just type in the EverDead Evil Dead or whatever.
Or cut you up.
And don't just
Cut
lower
you
your
up,
expectations.
Nah, yeah, all the EverDead videos. Good.
And when I say I wrote the song, I mean I wrote the lyrics and I came up with vocal melodies. I can't play any instruments. I can only sing, and even that I can't even do very well.
Wait!
What?
You didn't tell people that I wasn't a groupie.
You are a groupie. You're my
I'm
one
not.
groupie.
I'm not your group. What? You did.
Okay, you're my second groupie. You're definitely a groupie. It's just one that
I'm not a groupie, damn it.
I'm just doing it wrong because I was supposed to just use you and toss you aside, but I've kept you. And I just consistently use you.
It's like a Pretty Woman situation.
Yeah.
God.
And,
Wait,
and I
Pretty
use you for
Woman.
art too.
Yeah,
So
thanks a lot. Thanks.
I don't think you've ever the Julia Roberts movie. You've probably never seen.
Oh,
it.
I was gonna say, wait, are you talking about where Macaulay Culkin got killed by bees? What?
I love it.
Yeah.
When Richard Gere opens the box and all the bees fly out.
Yes, to attack Macaulay Culkin. Yeah, that was a good movie. Very sad though.
Wait, was... Wait, what was Pretty Woman? Was that Pretty Woman? Or was that some other movie?
No, that was Pretty Underage Girl.
What was that called?
My Girl.
My Girl.
My Girl,
Why do
yeah.
I get that confused with Pretty Woman? I guess they both
Because they
have
both
like
have titles based on songs.
and a female word.
It's because of the song titles.
Pretty Woman, My Girl.
There you go. That's your reason why. So anyway,
Okay.
speaking of the 80s being the perfect setting for horror, that is why I set my novel that I wrote, Grim October, which was just recently released right around Halloween. I set that in 1989 just because I think that is like the ideal setting for a horror. I was just going to say horror movie, but a horror story, a horror fiction period. I like the 80s setting. And since with a book, you don't have to worry about budget or, you know, finding period-specific cars or any of that stuff you got to worry about with the movie, because originally I was always writing screenplays. But I switched to a book so that I could have, like, I don't have to worry about casting or budget or locations or anything, and I could just do what I want. And that's why Satan Ninja's in the 80s, and that's why my book, Grim October, is in the 80s. And, yeah, you should read my book. If you're into horror fiction at all, you should check out Grim October. It's on Amazon.
Yeah, it ended up being really good.
Yeah, Jessica did illustrations for it.
Yeah.
And,
I read a first draft on the EverDead forum, and if you use the way back machine, you can find the forum post.
I forgot that I posted like the first chapter or two on the EverDead's old message board. And that's all, like, none of that is in the book now.
No.
Like, it's completely different from what I wrote then. You think it'd be viewable on the Wayback Machine?
Unfortunately, I can see the post. You can't read the post, though.
Oh, you looked?
Oh, man.
What
Oh,
the heck?
fuck, that would be awesome to be able to read that.
Yeah.
Did you not save that?
No,
stuff?
actually, I do think I still have an old version of my book. Like, I have several old
better.
versions on the computer.
Yeah,
But
that'd be
it'd
cool.
still be interesting to be able to read that old forum and to see what people said about it. And, like, contact those people like, hey, remember this thing that you were excited for, like, 15 fucking years ago? Well, it's done. So you can go and buy it now. If you're alive and interested in horror still at all. But, yeah. Anything you want to plug, Greg?
I'm going to plug my SoundCloud, which actually has more than enough space for all of my music.
Oh, yeah? Did you actually pay for more hosting time?
Yeah. Couple hours worth of music of some outrunny, chiptune stuff, as well as some horror drone and some old school 70s Giallo worship stuff.
Jalo?
Yeah, it's Italian for yellow.
Oh.
It's kind of like a slasher movie that's like a murder mystery with like brutal kills, and I don't think they're ever supernatural, right?
Why is it yellow?
Yeah, why is it
because It's called Yellow because they're based off of pulp books from the pulp, like detective novels, thriller.
Right.
The books themselves were printed on yellow paper.
Oh.
So they call them Jello because these pulp novels would be on yellow pages. So
I did not know that.
movies.
That's
Jello.
interesting.
But yeah, so I'm a
How
big...
come the Italian films always get to have their own special genre names, like spaghetti western? You know,
Yeah, a great stereotype.
You're right.
Made into a genre. I love that shit too.
yeah, no, it's great.
Italy does it way better. They make better sequels. Zombie 2.
Super hot chicks.
Super hot chicks. Better sword and
Thank you.
sorcery movies. Better westerns. Better everything. But yeah, go to my SoundCloud.
Worst religions, though.
Oh yeah,
Worst religion.
easily
Oh, yeah,
the worst.
yeah.
Well, actually, I won't say worst.
Yeah, but I will say worst at preventing sex crimes.
Yeah. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. Worst at preventing sex crimes,
Ooh.
but super hot babes.
Way hot babes.
Yeah.
But go to my
Thanks, guys.
SoundCloud / Gregory Samsa, or just look up G Samsa, as well as my band Nightline.
Nightline, and that's like
Pop punk.
pop punk band
Pop
that
punk.
you play guitar in.
Yep.
Awesome.
Very
Um,
80s sounding name.
Yeah.
Nightline is a very 80s sounding.
A good friend of mine, Monty, said that it made him think visions of like neon splash and a lot of cocaine.
Yeah.
But no, nothing like that.
Oh
Unfortunately.
man, what the hell? You're
so
you're in the
misleading.
band.
Yeah,
Make
just a
it
bunch
like
of guys
that.
playing sad punk.
Oh, make
That's kinda
it more,
poppy.
more cocaine and neon. Do it. You have the power, right?
Oh, all my neon comes out in the other music.
Excellent. Thanks for being on our podcast. I'm sure we'll have you on another episode if you'd be interested in doing more.
Yeah, anytime you want to talk about fucked up, gory movies from the 80s, I will
Alright.
gladly give my
Demons
opinion on them.
too?
Demons too.
Hell yeah.
All right. If you have any questions, comments, or praise, or you want to check out a super fucking awesome comic, go to SatanNinja.com. You can find our contact information. You can watch the promo videos that feature Greg in them, and also myself and Jessica.
Yeah.
Jessica's in it quite prominently.
I'm in it a lot.
Yeah, show them.
Wearing sexy, like, leotard and
Yeah.
and also being a teenage boy, which isn't sexy at all.
Yeah.
At least not to me. Maybe to some people.
I'm sorry.
I don't know. And and you can read our comic that I write and Jessica also writes and also does all the art for, and it's super cool. So
Yeah.
SatanNinja.com, and also now that we are on iTunes and Google Play, if you want to help us out, it'd be great if you could go there and subscribe to us or leave a review, because that could really help us get more awareness to the Radicast, the raddest podcasts in the world. It needs to have more listeners, I think. And if you want to be a super radical dude or dudette, you can support Jessica's Patreon, because she spends all of her time doing art.
Yeah.
And like Satan Ninja is basically your full-time job.
Yep.
And the only money you get through Satan Ninja is what you make through Patreon.
Yes, so please save my sanity and donate through Patreon. And I'll be happy.
And Jessica will love you, and I will love you
I
too.
love you. Yeah, patreon.com/Jessica
Yeah.
Safron with one F.
Patreon.com/Jessica Safron with one F. Or you can just go to SatanNinja.com and we link to the Patreon on our website. And even just $1 a month would really help out. If all the fans could just pitch in $1 a month,
just
then we could
$1.
hit our first goal right
my
away.
gosh, yes.
And you could have a wage that would allow you to maybe eat more than ramen.
Yeah, I literally eat ramen at least twice a day.
Yeah, ramen and frozen pizzas.
I am almost
and we chop our frozen pizzas in half so that we can make them last, get more money's worth.
Probably made entirely out of ramen and frozen pizzas by now. Like, my body composition is entirely that.
So if I were to cut you open, just cheese and noodles would spill out.
Noodles.
That's super disgusting.
Well, hot cheese and noodles. Right?
That's still super. That's more disgusting.
Well, it's literally hot. I guess... it's pretty appetizing, right? It would definitely steam in the wintertime.
Yeah, so if you could support us, it would mean so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.